This is Solid Snake, and you're listening to the FReality Podcast. So pay some damn attention.
So this is a very exciting interview for the FReality Podcast because today we have a very special guest. You may know him as the voice of Solid Snake, but he's also the screenwriter for X-Men and the Watchmen movies, a director, a producer, a man of many talents. David Hayter, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. So today we want to talk about a project that you've been working on with VR studio Dreams, and that's because you've recently voiced a new character for an upcoming virtual reality game from the team called Phantom Covert Ops. Can you tell us a little bit about the character that you voiced for this game?
Yes, the character is General Zhurov. He is a somewhat insane former Soviet military commander who is determined to bring back the glory of the Soviet Union by crushing you, the character.
Sounds like the perfect role for you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, I say when I started my career, all I ever played was heroes. I was the lead in Guyver. I was Captain America. I was Snake, all these things. And then once I turned 40, it all turned to villains. So I don't know if that's just inherent ageism or what, but all of my characters are fairly unhinged now.
And that's a good point, actually, because as you say, Snake was always the character that was going to try and save the world, whereas this general is the one that's trying to cause all the chaos. So yeah, it must be really nice and refreshing for you to be the bad guy for a change.
Yeah, it's funny because the Covert Ops game is similar to Metal Gear in that you're a stealthy special forces operative who's infiltrating this flooded Soviet era base, and so essentially you get to play a Solid Snake type character trying to kill me, which is a bit of meta irony that I think people will enjoy.
Very cool. So for you, how did this opportunity with Dreams come about? And what is the reason that you were attracted to this specific role?
Well, it came about because Dreams got in touch with me and asked me if I would do it. And that made me want to do it. I'm primarily a screenwriter, producer now. That's how I make my primary living. But I love acting, and I love voice acting in particular. So my rule for projects, for me to take a project, A, you have to ask me, and B, there is no B. It's just you just have to ask me.
Yeah, and do they then just?
And that's what they did.
Do they sort of then have to pitch you the idea, or is it just a case of, oh, this sounds cool? Will it like a
Yeah, typically I look at a project and see, is it going to have real distribution? Is this a real thing? I basically want to know that it's a real production and that it's going to go somewhere, that there's a point to doing it. And obviously this was a very well-funded game, and it was going to be a big title for Oculus, and it just seemed very, very cool. Plus, I get to, General Zhurov is from Russia. He speaks with this accent, and that's how I started my career. My first Hollywood role, I did a guest star role on Major Dad, where I played a Russian kid with this Russian accent, and then I went on to be on Captain Planet as a Russian, and so I sort of, they said, "Are you comfortable doing a Russian accent?" And I was like, I got it in my pocket. So
and that's amazing.
Captain Planet. I was a huge fan of that back as a kid. Like, wow.
Yeah, so I was. I only did 2 episodes. I was the brother of the Russian Planeteer. So when she went back home to deal with some sort of problem, I was there. And
that's awesome. I probably saw that episode. Like,
yeah, and it was the first episode that Margot Kidder did as Gaia, the computer. So I got to work with her, and It was my first American voiceover job. It was really, really cool.
Nice.
That's awesome. So when you get into the role of General Zhurov, how much can you inject into this role yourself, or is there, sort of a strict guideline in terms of like the lines, or can you sort of ad lib a little bit and add bits here and there?
I don't tend to, unless they ask me to. It's always scary to hire an actor who's also a writer. You don't want your actor to come in and rewrite your script unless you do, but most times people don't. So I tend to stick close to the script, but I had a few Russian phrases and things that I knew that I was able to throw in and just to give it a little more reality. But basically, I feel like they hire me to perform the script that they give me. So that's what I do, unless I see some thing that I can make better in a simple and non-destructive way.
Yeah, makes sense.
Awesome. So let me just quickly sort of talk about Phantom for those out there that don't know anything about this game. So it's an Oculus exclusive title coming soon, where, like you said, you play the role of this sort of elite covert operative, and you've got like a single night basically to prevent an all-out war. But it's really unique in that you do all this by water, using this like tactical kayak that's kitted out with all these guns and gadgets for you to assist the mission. So it's quite a unique VR game in that sense. And it works
really well, right?
It works really well. Having played it,
you're always kind of seated down. You don't really have motion sickness because you're moving in a kayak. So it's a really neat kind of concept.
Yeah, so the mechanics of it are amazing. It sounds strange, the kayak element, but you get used to it very quickly. You just sit in a chair and you take the handsets and you kayak. You row like you would a kayak or a canoe, and you can like lay the oar down in the water and turn it so that the kayak turns, and the movement of it is really amazing. It's incredibly immersive.
Yeah,
and a really remarkably unique and original use of the VR world.
Yeah, and which headset did you use to play it? Did you use the Oculus Rift or did you play it on Oculus Quest?
Quest.
Oh, okay. So it's because recently I visited the team at Endreams and we got to play it at the studio, like a relatively new build. And on Rift, it looks absolutely incredible. So I think those on the PC platform, you'll definitely benefit from like the higher resolution graphics and stuff. But the gameplay elements are all intact, obviously, for the Quest players as well. But for Rift owners, you're going to get a treat for the eyes, that's for sure, because visually it's stunning, especially with all the dark sort of scenes and the lighting and the fog and everything else. It just sort of comes together really nicely.
Yeah, and you can. I discovered that you can take your silenced pistol and you can shoot out the lights overhanging, right. So you can like change the lighting around you and create darkness, and it's really
RTX on, right?
I don't know what that means.
We're geeks. That's why we know what that is. It's like something that started a while ago with the new NVIDIA cards, where like now. Like people who make games, the developers themselves can really benefit from like lighting effects. So it's something that started with being RTX on and RTX off, and how it looks different. It looks epic.
God, that's pretty geeky indeed.
Yeah, I know, right?
It is. So going back to your sort of Solid Snake days, how did you first find out that you had that kind of ability to do that with your voice, like create these voices? Was it at a really young age and then you sort of got into voice acting, or how did that all come about?
I started acting. I did my first acting role at 9. I started doing stage, and that started developing my ability to, project my voice in a way that people could hear it. And then my parents used to do a lot of accents. They do like Irish accents and Scottish accents, things around the house. So I started doing that. And I really voiceover just sort of came to me. When I went to high school in Kobe, Japan, and when I was 16, a video game company came to our high school and said, we need 4 English-speaking guys to do voices for arcade games. And I was one of those guys. And so I've been doing voices in video games pretty much since there's been video games.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and then I started doing English language tapes in Japan. I don't know. It just.
Do you think it's because you traveled so much as well that you kind of rolled into that kind of scene a bit?
I don't know. Well, I mean, the traveling certainly helped me develop different accents, different voices, different languages.
Do you have an idea of how many accents you currently can do?
I don't. I mean, all of them. I can do a lot of accents, but I don't have any idea what the number is.
And you say like when N-Dreams came up to you and said, do you want to play this role, General Zhurov, and he was a Russian, and you were like, I've got that in the bag already. Was that the same with Snake when Konami approached you to do Snake? Like, did you have that voice in your head?
No, not at all. No, what happened was I auditioned for Snake with my voice, which is just like this. And I was young. I mean, I was 28. And then I got the script, and it was like he'd already retired. He was already a legend. He was bitter about having been called back. And I felt like he was older because my voice is sort of, I sound like a cocky fighter pilot or something like that. He just had a lot more gravitas to him and a lot more experience to him. And so while I read the script, I just felt, it just started to come to me that this guy was a lot more beaten down and a lot more experienced and a lot more, had driven over a lot of hard road, basically. And so that was the voice I came in to perform with. And then midway through the first day of recording, Chris Zimmerman, who was the voice director, played back my audition, and it was completely different from what I was doing. So no, neither Konami nor Kojima expected that voice, but it seemed to fit the character, and they signed off on it that first day. So the rest is history.
And then that was it. Then that was your voice for many games after that.
Yeah, nine games, 12 years.
Wow.
It's
amazing how much character and voice can bring to like a video character, right?
Yeah, well, ideally, the voice should be compelling, and in a game like Metal Gear, you are constantly hearing it. Like you're just living with that character, with that voice, and it's your voice. I mean, you are the character, so people really get attached to Snake, and I think people feel a very personal connection to the voice, and it's very cool for me about being an animation fan, and loving the voices of like Homer Simpson or Bugs Bunny or to know that I've got a voice that people respond to and it makes them happy is a great gift, and it really makes me happy.
And I think that's the thing.
I used to.
So I was going to say that's the thing. Like for the audio listeners that don't watch the video here, you'll realize you'll not see that when David started doing the voice that we both instantly just started grinning because it just takes you back to playing those games and enjoying them so much, and it's just like you're there again. It's so funny how that takes you right back to being a kid again.
It's like you're having an interview with the actual video game character.
Yeah,
and that's right.
I think that's.
Plus, he kind of looks like me, so you can pretend all you like. Damn it.
I used to watch a lot of anime, and I know that I was a big Dragon Ball Z fan as well, and they have very strong voice actors there as well. And I used to watch a lot of videos where they did the voice acting, and they would actually perform it out a lot as well. Are you someone who gets like very physical as well when you do the voice acting?
Yeah, very much. Well, especially when you're playing an action character, you don't want it to sound like you're just sitting in a chair. I did a game called Republique, which is out on VR as well. It was a very good game. And in that one, I played sort of an insane, unhinged revolutionary who would do these radio broadcasts. and he'd get drunk, and I would actually drink whiskey while doing it. And then we brought in a prisoner, and I told the guy, I'm like, look, I am going to be throwing you around this booth. And because I'd go off the mic, and I like slammed this guy into walls and, wrestled him around. And it turned out he was a former Marine, so he was fine with it. But yeah. And then for General Zhurov in Phantom Covert Ops, I mean, there is no scenery left unchewed in my performance. It's big and it is unhinged. So there's a lot of physicality to it.
So nice. so when N-Dreams came up to you and said, he's an alcoholic Russian villain, you were like, yeah, method acting, I've got this one down.
I've got it. Got it in my pocket.
Absolutely. So when these sort of opportunities come to light, do you have like a studio at home that you use to record these lines, or do you go to a studio nearby and send them over like digitally, or how does that sort of work?
It depends on the situation. I recently did a game called Steam Dolls that out of France that I recorded from my home studio, but mostly for professional recording, it's been you go into the booth, and we had a studio for Covert Ops in Burbank. Burbank seems to be the place that has all the voiceover studios, and but times are changing. Obviously, people aren't able to leave, and now the voiceover industry is largely run out of people's closets and home studios.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and is that
a different world?
Is it then with? I assume you have a script, but do you also have any video material that you can go off by, or is that all just more like your imagination that needs to run free?
Yeah. Well, again, it varies by game. On Metal Gear, there were various different ways we had to do it. So in Metal Gear 4, we were watching the mocap actors. So it was all Japanese actors in the ping pong ball suits. And so when Snake would move, I would make the corresponding sounds and things like that. But for Covert Ops, it was just I have the script and I do the performance, and then they'll animate around me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And you said earlier on that you have some experience with virtual reality, and you mentioned that you did a voice in Republic as well, which of course was another VR game. Other than Phantom Covert Ops, of course, do you have any other favorites that you sort of play regularly?
Yeah, well, and also I want to say I was also Professor Plug in Farlands, which was like a game that came with the original Oculus.
Yeah.
Professor Plug, and I sort of spoke like this.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't know that was you.
Yeah, I know you can't tell, but it was me, and so that was pretty fun. Do I have any favorites? I've been playing Vader Immortal, which is amazing. I just did The Room. My daughter and I do escape rooms, and so I got The Room and The Fisherman's Tale, which are really cool puzzle games. You know what I love? It's not a game, but I love the Wander app on the Oculus.
Yeah.
So I have lived all over the world, and I've traveled all over the world, and so I use the Wander app, and I go back to my high school in Japan, or I walk through the streets of Kobe or Osaka where I used to live, and it's amazing. Like you just speak into the mic and say the address of your childhood home, and then suddenly you're dropped down in full 3D in front of your childhood home, and it's really amazing.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny actually, because I've got my father-in-law who lives with us. When Wonder first came out, I showed him the app, and he went back to his childhood home in Fiji, and he was getting to grips with it and sort of teleporting around. And then he saw a curb, and he almost tripped over a virtual curb in real life, because it was kind of his first time with VR. So it was really interesting. But it's great to hear that you're enjoying that app as well.
Oh, I love it. It's amazing. I was walking through the streets of Kobe, and I was like, oh my God, that restaurant I loved was down here. And so, you walk down, and it's all different now, but I really love that app.
And especially in these times at the moment, it's a great way to escape reality for a little bit and go back to some simpler times, maybe.
That's true.
And how are you coping with the lockdown and everything else?
Pretty well. I mean, it's stressful for my family. We've got my wife, my daughter, my mother lives here, and we got 4 dogs, and so it's a little tough to be shut in together. Fortunately, I mean, I feel badly for the people that live in New York or something like that. We have a great big house, and we've got a huge lawn or yard with a giant pool, and so we've got more space than most people, which is nice. And frankly, as a screenwriter, this hasn't really changed my lifestyle that much at all. I'm a pretty isolated character to begin with, so I'm kind of enjoying it in a perverse way, but it is tough on the family, and I do find it stressful. Now, going to the grocery store is stressing me out.
Yeah, of course. And as a writer, are you constantly writing at the moment, or on working on new projects?
Well, I try. I mean, it's it has a weird effect. This thing it dampens your motivation, but at the same time, I'm writing a TV show for Netflix called Warrior Nun, which our debut was supposed to be May 7th, but it got bumped now. But it's coming out soon, and so that's really fun, and I'm very, very fortunate to be working on that. And then I just closed a deal to create and star in an animated show. So I'm going to be starting on that pretty soon.
Awesome. Warrior Nun on Netflix. Go and check it out. What about any other superhero stuff in the pipeline?
I don't know if I have any other superhero stuff in the pipeline. No, not that I can think of.
That's sort of your bag with X-Men and like Watchmen, both awesome.
It is
awesome superhero
Well,
movies.
it was. I mean, and I love being the comic book movie guy, but I don't at the moment. No, I don't have any superhero themed things going on, which is strange.
That's cool. Well, thank you very much.
Into a villain.
He turned into a villain, exactly. Thank you very much for joining us on the FReality podcast. We really, really appreciate you taking some time out for us, and I look forward to meeting your character, General Zhurov in Phantom Covert Ops, when it releases on Oculus Rift and Oculus Quest later on the 25th of June. So you can face him yourself as well and check it out.
Well, thank you, Tovarish. I think you will enjoy it. And I hope you will all vote for the new Soviet Union when it comes about.
Thank you very much, David. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was great fun.